que ça serait une présentation que vous avez vue plusieurs fois. Et après, on va passer aux discussions. Donc, la gouvernance de l'Internet, pourquoi on a une campagne sur la gouvernance de l'Internet? Parce qu'il y a des bouleversements à l'heure actuelle, et ça, c'est un peu l'étude qu'on a faite l'an dernier sur le futur de l'Internet qui nous ont dit il y a des préoccupations sur la cybersécurité, il y a des préoccupations sur ce que l'intelligence artificielle peut créer, sur ce que l'IoT peut créer, etc. Donc, il y a beaucoup de gens qui ont peur et qui disent à leur gouvernement, et les gouvernements sont obligés d'agir. Donc, les gouvernements veulent s'impliquer dans la gouvernance, et comme vous le savez, ce qui est un peu particulier pour l'Internet comparé aux autres technologies, c'est que les gouvernements n'étaient pas aussi impliqués que ça, surtout au début. Donc maintenant, les gouvernements s'impliquent, mais en fonction des pays, quelquefois, leur implication a un impact important sur l'Internet. Parce que ce qui a fait le succès de l'Internet, c'est un peu et même beaucoup la façon dont elle a été gouvernée. Une gouvernance multi-acteurs qui a permis à tout le monde à participer à l'évolution de cette technologie. Maintenant, il y a des gouvernements qui pensent que non, sécuriser l'Internet, par exemple, c'est la tâche du gouvernement. Vous n'avez pas de rôle à jouer dans ça. Et autre tendance que nous pensons assez néfaste pour l'Internet. Donc on a dit qu'il faut qu'on ait une campagne pour que cette gouvernance de l'Internet qui a tellement aidé à créer un environnement d'innovation, un développement de la technologie qu'on n'a pas vu dans d'autres domaines, on ne veut pas que ce modèle de gouvernance disparaisse. Donc nous pensons que c'est urgent d'agir et de promouvoir ce modèle. Donc, une fois qu'on est décidé de l'importance de protéger ce modèle, après il faut savoir comment on le fait. Et on le fait de plusieurs manières. La première, c'est en faisant ce qu'on faisait avant. Donc, qu'est-ce qu'on fait avant? On allait dans des réunions nationaux, nationaux, globaux, et on essaye de parler, de montrer aux gens que ce modèle est important, qui fait partie des raisons pourquoi l'Internet est aussi utile, et aussi pour convaincre surtout les pays en voie de développement que ça serait vraiment dommage que ce modèle disparaît alors que nous, on s'embarque à l'Internet. Donc, c'est notre heure, c'est l'heure de l'Afrique, c'est l'heure des pays en voie de développement pour bénéficier de cet Internet. Et nous ne voulons pas qu'il y ait un Internet découpé, fermé, alors que c'est notre heure pour en bénéficier. Donc ça, c'est aller, par exemple, aux réunions de l'IUT, aller dans des réunions des Nations Unies, etc., et en parler, mais aussi aller dans des réunions régionaux comme à l'Union africaine, ou bien même dans des réunions locaux, nationaux, pour faire l'advocacy. C'est déjà quoi le mot advocacy en français? Le plaidoyer, pardon. Donc, pour faire le plaidoyer de ce modèle. Mais on ne veut pas nous arrêter là, parce que malheureusement, par exemple, les forums de la gouvernance de l'Internet, qui ont été un grand succès, mais les gens commencent à dire c'est que des discussions, on ne fait rien là-bas, on ne fait que discuter. Donc, on pense aussi qu'il faut de l'action. Et il faut démontrer que ce modèle multi-acteur peut vraiment aider à résoudre des problèmes concrets autour de l'Internet. Donc, on a des actions pour utiliser ce modèle multi-acteur afin de résoudre des problèmes concrets autour de l'Internet qu'on voit dans des pays. Par exemple, c'est ce qu'on fait avec la protection des données personnelles. Donc ça, c'est un problème qui préoccupe de plus en plus de pays. Donc on a développé ces lignes directrices avec l'Union africaine, amenées au niveau local. Donc on va créer, par exemple au Sénégal, un vrai travail pour que le Sénégal se prépare, avance un peu dans la résolution de ce problème. Et on espère le faire dans d'autres pays. Donc ça, c'est la deuxième méthode. Et après, il faut aussi le capacity building, donc le renforcement des capacités humaines, parce que tout changement ne peut se faire que s'il y a des gens qui comprennent cela. Donc nous allons nous avons déjà des cours. Vous pouvez utiliser ces cours sur l'Internet, sur la gouvernance de l'Internet n'importe quand. Mais nous appuyons aussi des initiatives externes telles que l'école School of Internet, African School of Internet Governance, qui est organisée par APC. Donc voilà ces axes principaux pour la campagne Internet Governance. Donc qu'est-ce qu'on fait en Afrique? En Afrique, en fait, on s'aligne à ces axes. Donc pour les réunions internationaux, nous travaillons avec, par exemple, mon collègue Verengay, qui est en charge de la politique publique pour l'Afrique, et actuellement à Alger. Je pense qu'il arrive aujourd'hui. Il est à Alger parce qu'il y a une réunion de l'IUT pour la préparation du plénipotentiaire qui va se faire à Dubaï bientôt. Donc nous agissons dans les préparations des réunions internationales au niveau africain. Nous avons aussi participé dans des réunions très importantes au niveau global, le G7. Vous avez, je suis sûr, entendu parler au moins dans les journaux, surtout avec les différentes choses qui se sont passées là-bas. Mais malgré cette petite crise, il y a quand même eu quelques avancées dans le domaine de l'Internet, donc c'était important d'y être. Nous allons aussi au G20. Malheureusement, dans le G7, il n'y a aucun pays africain, mais le G20, il y a l'Afrique du Sud qui est représentée. Et nous avons une très bonne relation avec le gouvernement de l'Argentine qui va être qui va organiser la réunion des chefs d'État. Et il y a plusieurs autres réunions autour de ça et nous essayons de créer des coalitions, etc., afin d'agir plus efficacement pour le plaidoyer de la gouvernance de l'Internet. Finalement, nous essayons aussi de participer dans le BRICS. Je ne sais pas si vous êtes familier avec ça. Le BRICS, c'est Brésil, Russia, and China, South Africa. Donc, jusqu'à maintenant, on a très peu de relations avec les BRICS, mais c'est un groupement comme les autres, et ils sont peut-être plus proches des intérêts de l'Afrique. Donc, nous voulons travailler avec eux. Malheureusement, ils sont assez fermés. Et donc, si vous avez les moyens, si vous connaissez, et c'est pour ça qu'on a besoin des chapitres aussi, si vous avez des possibilités de créer des opportunités pour l'Internet Society, d'être impliqués, nous serons très très ravis parce que malheureusement le G7 et le G20 c'est plutôt les pays développés et nous aimerons participer dans d'autres forums aussi. Nous allons aussi à Bruxelles, j'ai du mal à le prononcer, mais c'est une grande conférence organisée par la Chine. Je pense qu'il faut y être parce que c'est quand même, nous ne partageons pas toujours les mêmes principes, mais c'est important d'y être et aussi de faire des plaidoyers même là-bas. Ok, au niveau des activités concrètes pour la gouvernance de l'Internet, nous avons un grand projet au Sénégal. Pourquoi le Sénégal? Parce que c'est un pays qui a adopté le modèle multi-acteur et qui vraiment le montre. Au niveau gouvernemental, Maïmouna peut en parler peut-être, mais ils ont toujours appuyé, par exemple, le travail des chapitres. Il y a la communauté technique qui est très très engagée. Donc nous pensons que c'est un modèle qui peut montrer aux autres pays africains, mais aussi du monde entier, que le modèle multi-acteur peut essayer de résoudre, peut permettre de résoudre les problèmes concrets. Donc, comme j'ai dit tantôt, on va travailler sur les données privées, les données à caractère personnel, mais aussi sur la sécurité de l'Internet et peut-être d'autres choses. Donc, pour montrer au Sénégal, mais aussi pour le reste du monde, que c'est un modèle qui marche. Du point de vue renforcement de capacité, comme j'ai dit, on aide les initiatives, surtout régionaux, pour le renforcement des capacités. Donc, en résumé, c'est ce qui se passe avec la campagne de la gouvernance de l'Internet. Ici, je vois aussi qu'il y a un certain nombre d'activités qui sont indiquées. Premièrement, il y a une grande opportunité de collaboration avec l'Union africaine grâce au projet PRIDA. Donc, une des raisons pourquoi vous êtes là, c'est pour vous rapprocher de l'Union africaine au cas où il y a des opportunités dans ce sens. Nous allons aider les ambassadeurs. On va avoir des bourses pour aller aux IGF, à l'IGF à Paris. Maintenant, je pense que c'est confirmé. On appelle ça le programme d'ambassadeur IGF. Et aussi, il y a le même programme qui est dédié aux jeunes. Je pense que c'est à peu près tout. Donc, je m'arrête là. Merci. Et je laisse mes collègues parler des autres composants. Merci. Choukri.
Je veux un commentaire ou rebondir sur le modèle multi-acteur. Donc, je pense que le modèle multi-acteur, certes, il est applicable dans certains contextes, et qu'on peut appliquer dans plusieurs contextes, mais avec son cycle de décision qui est plus ou moins lourd. Avec la situation actuelle, par exemple, en Afrique, où les gouvernements dominent tout l'écosystème, de l'Internet, de l'infrastructure, jusqu'à l'accès, on aura tendance plutôt d'avoir des stakeholders, c'est vrai, mais parfois des stakeholders fictifs. Donc ce que je pense, il faut que ce modèle multi-stakeholder soit développé, soit révisé, pour qu'il s'adapte au contexte africain, et non pas seulement africain, mais de plusieurs pays où on a les réalités qui existent, et on est devant une réalité où les gouvernements sont en train de dominer de bout en bout l'écosystème de l'Internet. Donc, ma question, est-ce que vraiment c'est le modèle multi-stakeholder qui fait réussir l'Internet? Moi, personnellement, après plusieurs discussions dans plusieurs événements dans lesquels j'ai eu la chance de participer, tout le monde a tendance de voir que ce n'est pas le multi-stakeholder modèle qui fait réussir l'Internet, mais c'est plutôt cette relation qu'a l'Internet avec ses usagers. Donc on a toujours une relation de bottom-up. Donc c'est plutôt le bottom-up qui fait réussir l'Internet parce qu'on a des besoins réels qui émergent des usagers en soi. Avoir plusieurs stakeholders ou des stakeholders effectifs dans plusieurs pays de l'Afrique, où voilà, on voit une société civile qui appartient, qui est une société civile qui représente les gouvernements plutôt que la vision ou la représentation d'une vision ou d'une tranche de la population. Donc, je pense qu'il vaut mieux réfléchir sur ce modèle et sur l'application de ce modèle dans notre région. Merci.
Merci. Je pense qu'on est toujours ouvert pour réfléchir. En fait, le modèle de l'Internet encourage la discussion. Et c'est ça qui est important. Donc, ce qui est important, c'est que chacun a la possibilité de vraiment d'agir, en tout cas à sa voix, qui compte pour les décisions qui sont prises. Par exemple, c'est souvent le gouvernement qui prend cette décision. Mais c'est après une consultation qui se fait avec tous les acteurs. Et ça, il y a certaines pays qui ne sont pas habitués à ce genre de consultation pensent que c'est lourd, que c'est inutile, mais beaucoup de pays maintenant trouvent que c'est en fait beaucoup plus réaliste parce que quelque chose qui a été discuté va être beaucoup plus facile à appliquer. C'est pour ça, par exemple, que le Kenya, et il y a mes collègues ici qui viennent du Kenya, a introduit le modèle multi-acteurs dans sa constitution parce qu'ils disent des décisions qui sont prises que par le gouvernement ne vont pas être appliquées comme il faut parce que les autres vont trouver que c'est quelque chose qui a été imposé sur eux. Donc, je ne veux pas commencer une discussion philosophique ici parce que ça va nous prendre beaucoup de temps, mais merci beaucoup pour votre réaction. Oui, est-ce qu'on a du temps? J'ai pas, parce que là, on est déjà à combien de minutes? Oui, Aboubakar, je m'excuse, mais il faut qu'on passe. Et je suggère qu'on retarde les discussions et qu'on ait juste les présentations avant le déjeuner. Vous notez vos questions et après on a toujours la possibilité d'en discuter plus tard. Ça va? Merci.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Chege, and I will talk about one of the campaigns that the Inter-Society is leading on IoT. And then in the afternoon, we can have further discussion on IoT in Africa and your thoughts on how we can make the campaigns a success and how we as ISOC can support what you're doing in IoT. So. Okay, so I'll start off with a question. How many people here have what they think is an IoT device? 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. The last time I made this presentation, I was in a slightly bigger room and I think only 2 people put their hands up. So an IoT device, just for explanation, is a small device which perhaps in the recent past could not have been, would not have been able to be connected to the internet. We're talking about things like watches, smart watches, smart televisions, and devices we use maybe in our kitchens like fridges, microwaves, and so on, or sensors. Estimates by different people say that by the year 2020, there will be several billion devices connected to the internet, which are IoT devices. This estimate that we're using here is by Gartner, which says 2.5 times the population. By the year 2020, we'll have IoT devices. So 2020 is not far. This is in the next 2-3 years. Perhaps you will be having a smart device, a device which you will use to, either entertain yourself or collect some sort of, some tracking some information, or even informing you of something else. Yes. Yeah. So, as more of these devices get connected to the internet, there are privacy and security risks. For example, I'll give you an example of smart televisions. I'm sure maybe you've heard that a few manufacturers of these smart televisions. So a smart television is a television just like this one or the one you have at home, but it has internet access. And some of them have microphones and they have cameras. So some of the devices, as you watched them, they also watched you, and collected information about what you are talking about, or what you are viewing, and so on. And then this information or this data was used by third parties to use that information to maybe direct better adverts at you or build a profile of you. So that's just one example of how privacy is very important when it comes to IoT devices. So as more and more devices are getting pushed onto the market, we have smart cameras, we have, as I said, smart entertainment devices, we have smart watches now. Smart watch can track your heart rate, can track how many steps you walked today. It can even report your location. All this information should be kept private. But what we've noticed is because of competition, a lot of these devices are put into the market very quickly, and they don't have a lot of inbuilt security in them, and many of them become vulnerable to other security issues later on. So the information that has been stored on that device cannot be properly secured. So these are just some of the vulnerabilities. The last one there is usually the one which I get the most questions about. What is IoT? So imagine that at home you have an internet connection for your house or in your office. In the near future, someone will come and say, I have a smart watch, or I have smart internet glasses that record everything that I see in a day so that I upload on my blog or my website. That device, that's what you call a bring your own IoT device. If that device is not secured, it means, if I come to your home and have an unsecure IoT device, our conversations could be recorded. If someone has an IoT device here that's not secure, what we're talking about here could be recorded. If you have, for example, smart glasses, the ones that have a camera and can record everything, if I stand behind you as you're using your laptop, take a photo of your emails or whatever you're watching, or I can record whatever password you're typing. So there are a lot of issues that come across when you talk about these vulnerabilities. So what are the risks? This image here gives a possible scenario in the near future whereby a number of devices that could be in your homes or in your offices, what happens if they were to get compromised? So if you have a smart door lock, whereby, for example, you can open or close your door at home or in the office by using your smartphone or something. If that lock gets compromised, someone could say, you need to pay me a certain amount of cryptocurrency for me to open your door. If your smart microwave, your smart fridge gets compromised, you may not be able to use that device. A lot of work being done right now is on intelligent transportation systems, especially at the IETF. So in the near future, vehicles, the car you drive or the bus you took or the train you took and so on, maybe they could have internet capability, and someone who is not even in your country might be able to take control of whatever device you're using if that device is not properly secured or kept up to date. So, So the challenges we face are, I think as more devices come in, there's a lot of value to having, everyone wants a smart device, something you can interact with on the go, it can collect information, you can interact with it more. There's this, as consumers will be exposed to more and more devices that we want to buy and use for our own protection or for our own entertainment. Many of these devices are being rushed to market, little consideration for basic security and privacy protection. So in this region and also in the global campaign, one of the things we're trying to do is educate people on these devices and also the risks and opportunities that come with these devices. So who's responsible for securing IoT? We believe there's a role for everyone. There's a role for you as a consumer, the person who will buy this device and use this device. If you're a regulator, if you're from the government and you want setting policies for information technology, there's a role for you to control the devices that are coming into your country. If you're internet service provider, perhaps there's something you could do to make sure that devices that are being used at homes don't get compromised remotely. If you're a reseller, for example, you sell these IoT devices, there is a role for you to test these devices, make sure they're secure before pushing them out into the market. Some of you may remember an attack that was called Mirai. Mirai, does anyone recall that attack? A distributed denial of service attack about 2 years ago that took out a big company called Dyn. They do a lot of DNS services. So just a brief recap on that. So I think 2 years ago, I think it was 2016, a number of common internet devices were compromised. We're talking about printers which have internet connectivity, smart cameras, home internet routers, devices with simple usernames and passwords, admin 123, and so on. They were compromised and they were used to launch a big denial of service attack against one of the larger DNS service providers on the internet, and many of the websites that we use every day were unreachable. Things like Twitter, Facebook, CNN, and so it was a very big attack, and it took a long time to troubleshoot and find out the problem. But when they found out what was the cause of the problem, it was a number of IoT devices out there. So that's just one example of what could actually happen if we all use these devices that are not secure. So as ISOC, we're working for better internet. We are engaging manufacturers and suppliers of IoT devices to adopt security and privacy guidelines. And we also want to educate users on the importance of secure IoT devices. I think in this region, most of the IoT devices are imported from Europe and US, but in time, I'm very sure people are going to start building their own IoT devices here, because it's actually, the equipment you need is very cheap and easy to access. So one thing we're trying to do now is get people to be aware of these IoT devices, their risks and opportunities. So we believe there are 3 steps in IoT trust by design. First step is to work with manufacturers and suppliers to implement our OTA IoT trust framework. I'm going to talk about that next. Mobilize consumers, people like you who are going to purchase these devices, to demand privacy and security of the devices. And lastly, encourage policymakers and regulators to push for better security. So I'll quickly mention a document that we've come up with, which is called the OTA IoT Trust Framework. It is a set of guidelines that were put together by ISOC and several other stakeholders, about 100 or more stakeholders. And it's a very good otaalliance.org/IoT. You'll see the document there. I'll quickly describe what's covered in that document, but I highly encourage you to go have a look at that document. But it does include actionable principles in the guidelines. I'll mention a few here because of time, then after this we can discuss maybe in the breakout sessions. IoT devices should have secure authentication, so it should not be simple usernames, simple passwords. They should be able to encrypt all the traffic passing through them. And also, there has to be a mechanism for updating all these IoT devices. You can go through the document, and of course, after the brief lunch break, we're going to discuss a bit more into IoT. This is a bit more on the document. Again, we believe there's a collective responsibility here by vendors, by manufacturers, by users, by governments, and ISPs in securing IoT. And I'm looking forward to the discussion after lunch, to your thoughts on how you can also play a role in this, what support you think you need, and if you have any IoT projects that you're working on in your region, that would also be interesting to hear about. So IoT security for policymakers. We're trying to work with policymakers in a policy environment that favors strong IoT principles and privacy features in IoT devices. We're trying to help this process. If you're engaged in some sort of policy work on IoT, please get in touch with us so that we can collaborate and see how we can help viewing what you're doing. Some action points for policymakers. Governments have the opportunity to get IoT marketplace, stimulate security and privacy, this is through policy, strengthen accountability through well-defined responsibilities, and support adoption of best practices in security. And there's more on this in that OTA Trust Framework document. Kindly go through it when you have time. Finally, let me close by saying in the African region, we're also trying to gather information on what projects or activities people are doing on IoT. We have, I've not seen any study yet on IoT, but as ISOC, we're trying to get one done, especially that we focus on the country Senegal. But we are trying to collect more information from our chapter. So if you have any information about maybe an IoT project that is being done in your country or IoT research being done, kindly share with us through the chapter so that we can get more information about this and see how we can support and collaborate on that on the activities being done. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to the discussion after lunch. I think because of time, questions. Yeah. Oh.
I think it's better that we finish with the campaign. We still have minutes to get some questions.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
All right. So I think I do not want to present slides on community networks. There's been a lot of slides on community networks. It will be more productive to have a discussion around community networks than to sort of do slides. Unless there's anyone who has a particular point they would like to raise on community networks, except Carlos. I think it might be more useful for us to have a discussion around community networks, given the discussions we had over the last 1.5 days, looking at the opportunities that exist through the creation of community networks.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but considering that I think you have stated a lot about community networks, and we have only less than about 15 minutes left, can we talk about manners? Believe community networks.
Yes, I was just going to give them a mental note on community networks. Yes. So the mental note I'd like you to keep and think through over lunch hour is to think about what role you find you are willing to play or capable of playing with respect to community networks in your local community. Meaning that what do you think as a chapter, looking at everything we've discussed, what role do you think you can play in your region or in your country to see more community networks being established, created, supported, etc.? So I'd like to hear your input on that and see where we can sort of support that effort or that or your efforts at the local level to get more traction with respect to community networks. So food for thought over lunch, and then let's discuss about that. So the next thing I want to talk about is manners. And before I talk about manners, I would like to just have you watch a video that is very new, so probably the first group to get to see it outside of ISOC, because it only has 40 views, that means mostly staff. So this is very interesting because it simplifies everything I would do in a 20-30 minutes presentation into a concise 2.5 minutes, and then we'll have a brief discussion. So Victor, just switch on the mic on that side. So.
We've come to an underground car park just outside Tel Aviv. To meet someone who's going to show us how easy it is to launch a cyber attack on the
The internet is a big, busy place. Networks across the globe are constantly exchanging routing information to get traffic flow. Is hit with hundreds of incidents every day, making global communication difficult, uncertain, and unsecure. Incidents such as route hijacking, when one network operator or attacker impersonates another. Route leaks, when a network operator unintentionally announces that it is IP address spoofing, when fake source addresses hide a sender's identity or impersonate someone else. These issues affect us all because they can inflict a lot of damage, like denial of service attacks, surveillance, and lost revenue, which impacts the safe, secure, and smooth running of the internet. If you run a network, you have a responsibility to fix the routing infrastructure. We can do something to tackle these issues and secure the internet's core routing system together. Join us in implementing MANAs, or mutually agreed norms for routing security. MANAs provides 4 simple but solid actions that provide crucial fixes to reduce the most common routing threats. These are filtering, making sure your and your customers' routing announcements are correct, stops false routing announcements from distorting the internet roadmap. Anti-spoofing, enabling source address validation prevents spoofed packets from entering or leaving your network. Coordination, maintaining globally accessible contact information in common places, such as the PRMDB, RIR who is databases, and your own website. And global validation, publishing your data, including your routing policy and prefixes you intend to advertise, so your routing information can be validated by third parties. Your security depends on others, and your actions affect everyone else. Implement these 4 simple actions and join the MANAs community, a collection of security-minded and motivated organizations committed to making the global routing infrastructure more robust and secure for everyone. To learn more, visit manas.org. Only by working together can we solve these problems. Together, we can protect the core.
Thank you, Victor. So that sort of sums up 20 plus set of slides. It doesn't mean you're free to go for lunch. It just means that you need to think about it. So one of the challenges of the discussions around MANAs is the fact that it's a very technical implementation. And when you think about it from that point of view, it means that the people you need to engage are the technical people. But also, there is a business case. And the question is, what is the business case to actually think about MANAs? And the business case for MANAs means that organizations that are actually needed to be engaged in implementing MANAs need to look at it more critically with respect to how it affects their operations, the operations of others, from the social trust on the internet. If we are talking about what is the importance of having the networks operating reliably all the time, what is the cost implications of having an outage which would have otherwise been prevented, then it becomes critical. Now let me take you back to the incident that Kevin has mentioned, the Mirai attack, which happened, that was last year, and 2016. It had a major impact on the global internet. Last year there was an attack on a company called Dime. And for some time we were not able to access services like Twitter, but it's not because Twitter was down, it's because the DNS service provider for Twitter was, was facing a denial of service attack on some parts of their infrastructure. So people were not able to resolve the name twitter.com. So how many businesses lost opportunity because Twitter is their channel for communication? Or how many organizations were affected by the fact that they are not able to transmit or distribute or channel their communications out? How much business did Twitter lose? Because they are also an advertising company. So there is an economic implication with respect to having an outage. Now, most importantly, if that outage can actually be mitigated. And if you think about how we build the internet today, there are reasons why we go for things like we propose, let's have an internet exchange point, or let's have redundancy. Why? Because this infrastructure, having internet exchange points, building redundancy, and so on, help keep the internet operating, meaning that when you have physical infrastructure, outages on the physical infrastructure, people can continue using the service without being affected. Why do we invest in these backup solutions? It's because there is a cost implication, because it's not cheap for a submarine cable operator to have what they call a failover route, or a restoration route, as they say, using another submarine cable operator, so that if there is a cut or a failure on one of the transmissions, whether it's the amplifier that has failed or just a cut, it takes many weeks and months sometimes before a repair is done. But what happens to their customers during that period? So they will invest a significant amount of money to make sure that if there is an outage on their infrastructure, their customers are not affected, because it affects the bottom line. Now, so that's the physical part. So Manners is looking at creating and providing a similar security or guarantee, for that matter, on the routing part. Because if we don't collectively come together and implement actions of Manners, what we are saying is that we're taking a lot of money to invest on an alternative physical side to protect against an outage, but then on the logical side, we're just standing and saying, well, let's hope nothing goes wrong. But as we've seen, it always goes wrong. Manners is some of the effects of Manners are as a result of what we call fat fingers. You know what are fat fingers? Typos. The same way you do typos, some of the incidents of Manners are as a result of typos. The engineer who's just doing the configuration does something and causes an outage. And a good example was the incident some years back with respect to YouTube. There was an issue in Pakistan. The government said, let's stop people in Pakistan accessing YouTube. And the engineer knew exactly what to do. Just one small oversight. Just human nature, human error. Caused the rest of the world to try and find YouTube in Pakistan. And it took 4 hours before YouTube was able to restore access to its service. 4 hours. So imagine 4 hours of outage to YouTube, to any service for that matter. It's fat fingers, right? So the cost implications to organizations just because of fat fingers can be huge. But we can reduce that by implementing actions like Manners. And so, while Manners is point of view in terms of what let's also understand that there's also an implication from the business point of view, the operations point of view, and use that as a way to approach organizations. And this is where chapters come in, where you are able to pitch this to service providers and say, well, you're investing a lot of money to keep your network up, but you're not protecting yourself from fat fingers of your engineers, which is a normal thing that happens more often than not. It's only that their networks are probably small, not as big as YouTube, where there's an outage and it makes headlines. But you're also making headlines in other smaller spaces, and it's costing you money. So there are 4 key actions that need to be taken by the operators. But it's important that before the engineers get to actually implement them, the people who are responsible for making these decisions know why it is important. And also the people who can create the motivation for this to get done, because one network doing it does not resolve, does not help fix the entire issue. It only becomes effective when every network on the internet actually implements manners. And so for us to get more and more networks, especially in our region, to deploy manners, it means we have to have more influence, more outreach, more engagement with people who can create that incentive for the networks to implement manners. And so who are these organizations? And so you can think of them, whether it's the policymakers, what are the incentives that they can create at the national level for the networks to be able to take manners seriously. So what kind of discussions do we need to have with policymakers with respect to manners? The operator, the customers, the enterprises, what kind of discussion do we need to have with the enterprises so that they can put the bottom-up pressure? Because if a bank doesn't care too much about how secure the ISP is routing their packets, then they might be getting exposed without knowing. Do they care about that? They care enough to invest a lot of money in security on the banking fraud side, but are they caring about the same thing with respect to their service providers? Is there some question they could be asking the service provider? So if the enterprise knows that, then they will put pressure, and the service provider will be like, oh yes, I need to do manners so that I can fix one of the 2 problems. The exchange point operators, the internet exchange points, is there something that they can do? So we need to look at those category of organizations, how we can engage with them, so that they can help us get more networks to do what they are actually supposed to do. And half the time, it's partly laziness. For some, it's, because, it is a bit of work for a large network to get all this done. And for some, there are business reasons. And for some, it's just pure lack of awareness. And so, when we put many pressure points, something happens. But if we don't put those many pressure points, it takes a very, very long time to see any effect. So I'm hoping to have a longer discussion with you in terms of how you think we can get more manners traction at the national level, at the sub-regional level. So I'm hoping that the few things I've mentioned with respect to manners can help, and I'm hoping through lunch we'll also get to think about that, and we can get to talk more about how we can do more with respect to this particular campaign in the afternoon. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kevin and Chuki. I think we are exactly at 20 to 2, so on time to go for lunch. So lunch will be at the same place as yesterday, so we have a bit of a walk. But fortunately, I don't think, unless it has changed, I hope it's not raining because we have to go outside. So let's go quickly there, and let's have lunch very quickly because it takes probably 10 minutes to go there, 10 minutes to come back, and 40 minutes to eat. Does that work? Okay.
4 minutes, yeah?
Thank you.
You say 4 minutes to eat?
1 hour.
Oh, okay.
So we will be back here in the room in 1 hour. So at 20 to 3. Okay, there will be hot drinks after lunch.
You are trying to...
Yes,
I'm trying to teach orange.
il y aura des boissons chaudes après les
Trying to stick, but you come back. Allow me stick current for you, eh? Allow me stick small current, eh? Eh?
It's okay.
Okay.
Right. There's no current in it.
I want us to sit together so that we can catch up, because once we leave here, I'm going to meeting. Have to do the summit. Oh, the summit. Sorry, no problem. So we'll find some time then. Yes. Because once you go back to your office, it's going to be worse. Yeah? I think it's a big step just having met. Yeah. And connected and now, you know. Yeah. But you see, I want to do that thing.
Okay.
And
So how are you going to do it?
I'm looking for